Welcome to the Sooner Surge, a podcast from SurgeSportsNetwork.com. Here is the entire Sooner Surge team. Brody, Hunter, Jason, Jackson, Jeremy, and Traver.
He tells it like it is, and I'm going to tell you like it is right now. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sooner Surge as we have the whole crew here tonight. And we're going to start it out on the diamonds tonight, guys, with softball. Obviously, another World Series trip for the Sooners. Tough kind of super regional there. Great game yesterday, the way they came back from behind. I know we talked about in the softball pod, but guys, let's get Hunter and Brody. You know, we didn't get your thoughts yesterday, so just kind of tell us your thoughts, guys.
Yeah, it's really, what else can you expect? I wasn't able to watch the game-tying home run from Kinsey Hansen as I was in the parking lot getting ready to go into work, but Chris Plank covered it perfectly on the radio. Literally says Kinsey can send it into a frenzy, and then next thing you know, on the 0-2 pitch, she goes yard to tie it up. It's just like this is starting to become like if this team wins the national championship, like they could really be considered the greatest team of all time in any sport. What they have done is unprecedented. It probably will never be done again. And it's been this way for the past 3 years now.
Hey, and we didn't talk about it on our video yesterday either, but I'm sure y'all saw the stat going on out there about the streaks, the win streaks, and how OU has like 4 of them since like 2000.
4 of the top 10.
And they've all within the last 4 years. I mean, it's just
and I believe all of OU streaks are above 40 as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just insane. Dynasty. Brody, what about you? Any thoughts to add to that?
I mean, there's not much more to add to it. It's like OU softball is inevitable. Like you can be up down to the final strike, and the game's still not over. And I think once Kinsey Hansen hit the 3-run home run, everyone kind of knew the game was over, even though it was a tie game.
Yeah,
and I
also think that we all saw the post-game conference with Kinsey Hansen, all the great quotes she had. But the quote that stood out to me, and that goes back to what you said, Brody and Hunter both, is how Alyssa Brito told Hansen that there's 2 strikes. You're not done yet. And so I'm sure that gave Hansen maybe some more motivation, even though she knew that she wasn't done yet. But it just shows like everything this team has in them. It's not just talent, it's leadership, it's culture. It's really everything that separates them from the rest.
And again, the thing watching it that's so impressive, there's so many things impressive about watching the team, but when they tied the game, okay, they were the visiting team here, and they had to go a couple of innings of really going through the lineup again, and Jordy Ball, like they just never succumbed to the pressure, to the moment. They're always calm, because I think what Hansen did was the most impressive thing, but being able to have the tie game and then go in and make defensive plays when they needed them in the next part of the inning, to strike out Cagle when Ball struck her out. There were so many things that they had to still battle for a couple of innings before they took the lead on Tiare Jennings' absolute bomb. That thing's still traveling. Hey, and the Cagle Ball matchup was just unreal. Great. It was great
for the high.
Hey, and I think it's time to put to bed. We've talked about this all year long on this pod, on the softball videos. When you have Mays, Starocco, and Ball, Ball is the one. Okay, that's the one you want on the mound. No, yep. I mean, May and Starocco are good pitchers, but Ball wants that ball in that situation, and she showed it yesterday. Like, she just closed the door, guys. To me, she's the kind of the pitcher you want in her hands. And I think going into, as we move on to the World Series now, you know, there's some interesting matchups that could take place. Tennessee, guys. You got Tennessee or Alabama. If you beat Stanford, then you got Tennessee, Alabama, and then Utah and OSU on the bottom half of that bracket. Both of them are interesting, especially Utah with the ties.
You also can't forget about Florida State, because OU only beat them by 1 run at home earlier in the year.
Oh, it's going to be
Florida State and Tennessee are 2 of the hottest teams in the country, along with OU.
I think it's the best field in the World Series that we've seen in years. Now, I know people would say, well, UCLA's not there, and other teams are upset, but just some hot teams coming in here right now. There's a lot of interesting things. All the Gassos will be there in Oklahoma City. And
Well,
yeah.
you know that they are super college softball, super happy that Fouts made it in. You know what I mean? There for a minute, I didn't think they were going to get in, but they pulled it out in that game 3.
Well,
that's a huge thing.
Yeah, it's like for me as a college softball fan, it's good to see that Montana Fouts is healthy because she's one of the best players in the game, and I respect her as a player, and I would like to see OU get the chance to compete against Montana Fouts.
Let me ask y'all this. Out of these teams, who would be the most intriguing as far as the final game, final series matchup for OU, in your opinion?
Florida State.
Really?
It's Utah.
I would
because of the storyline.
Yeah, I mean it would be Utah or Tennessee if you want the storylines.
You also have OSU that could be very interesting as Bedlam. I mean, there's a lot of those matchups would be great, and you have Fouts. Who wouldn't want to see Fouts versus OU? I mean, guys, some great matchups there.
You must love OSU softball because you even predicted them to beat OU a couple weeks ago. Now you're saying
how's that prediction going for you, Jay?
Well, they were up 2-0 in the 7th. That was another come from behind victory by OU there.
Jay, how's that prediction going for you?
Okay,
how was the prediction yesterday that we weren't even going to make it to Oklahoma City?
No, that is not true. Not put words in my mouth. No,
going to lose here, and we might lose.
But to be fair, y'all are bringing up Jay and Oklahoma State. I picked Oklahoma State to play Oklahoma in the national championship. I've said that multiple times, and I still think it's going to happen.
Hey, which take was worse? The game is over, or Nicole May sucks in the College World Series yesterday?
Yeah.
Hey, first off, Brody, why don't you, before you speak, get the words right of what was actually. Nobody said Nicole May sucks.
No one said Nicole May.
Didn't Jackson say that in the text thread?
No, nobody said that.
Hey, Brody,
we're not going there.
Hey,
That's
Brody,
wrong.
you better be careful on text threads because of all the recruiting stuff when we get to it later.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's just not go down that road. Hey, I did say, and I said this on our softball video, if y'all would have watched it, that I said I thought yesterday when they went down 7-4, the game was over. I did not think they would come back. They had no momentum. That's what was so impressive about it. 7 unanswered runs. They were down 7-4. I mean, the comeback was crazy because I did say, and I even said yesterday that you just can't count them out. But I did yesterday. I literally thought they weren't going to come back.
Jay, I was telling you on the phone, OU's going to come back and win this game. And you were like, no. I was like,
hey,
watch.
Two of the most under appreciated, really, girls from yesterday's win, though, is Kirsten Deal and Riley Boone.
I agree with both.
Riley Boone has had so many pivotal hits to lead off innings and get on base.
You guys? I forgot who tweeted it out, but it was like in all 3 of OU's comeback wins.
Yeah, I saw that
on the leadoff hit.
Yeah, Riley Boone's been so good,
and
they all have been.
I know, like while I was watching the game, whenever Coleman went out with her injury, or that's what you guys said. I brought up the idea that you could just move Riley Boone.
Yeah, she never came out. It just didn't look like a good thing at all. And it's just one of those terrible moments as, the announcers on ESPN talking about how Jada Coleman's made 179 consecutive starts for the Sooners and then swing in and twist her ankle. It kind of hobbles back to the dugout like right after they say it. You got to love it.
Hey, and we could talk for 3 weeks straight with the thesaurus in hand, and we wouldn't have enough synonyms to describe this team and just the impressiveness and awesomeness that they displayed. I say we switch now, guys, to baseball because we are literally on pins and needles about if this team's going to get to go any further, if their season is complete. We'll start with Hunter because he covers baseball more than any of us and has been following it probably minute by minute because we've been texting back and forth about who's lost, who's won, and where the Sooners stand. So let's just let Hunter talk a little bit about what's going on with OU and if they even have an inkling of a chance at having another game.
So after the loss to Texas Tech, it really went downhill from there. You got Oklahoma State, and former Sooner Ben Abrams shuts down the Sooners again. He had a 9.4 ERA last year with OU. Didn't play second half of the season. And now at Oklahoma State, he's pitched 11 innings against the Sooners. Only allowed 2 runs. It's just crazy how that happens. Aggravating as aggravating can get. And Sooner season might be over because of that. And there was 3 things we needed starting yesterday to happen. We needed Arizona to lose. They finally lost last night to Oregon in the championship game. So that kind of pushes them out of the bubble, that loss. And then you needed the teams from the smaller conferences like Dallas Baptist, the American Conference, stuff like that. You need those teams that are already going to make the tournament to win the conference championship, because there's no that, and I'm kind of aggravated on this. On like, I'm all for a Cinderella story, a small school making a run at a national championship. Yeah, but the fact that these conferences, like now that the American's going to have 2 teams in, and then Conference USA is going to have Dallas Baptist and Charlotte in, like, especially in an American, Tulane won 19 games, 19-40, and they are going to the tournament.
That's the way it is in basketball.
But that team has no business being there. It's there. Yes, guarantee 1 school from each conference. That's fine. But when you're getting 2 because of that,
how come Butler? What about Butler in the NCAA tournament when they made the Final Four 2 years in a row?
And I said I have no problem with that. That's a good team, Jay.
Yeah, but there's been some Cinderellas like UMKC that was even to the 15 seed.
What are you talking about?
See, this is what
there's 2 years ago.
Hey, there's
Florida Gulf Coast. Florida Gulf Coast.
And guess what? All those teams have in common. Every single one of them.
What?
They won their conference championships.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so did Charlotte.
Yeah, but okay, I'm not mostly talking about Charlotte. I'm talking about Tulane. That team won 19 games.
Yeah.
Didn't they win their conference tournament?
They've won 19 games.
But they won their tournament.
They've won.
It's same in basketball.
No, Jay, you're the one saying they need to change it.
No, listen.
Said that earlier.
That's what I'm getting ready to say, Hunter. My opinion is they need to change. Right now, you got to let those teams in, but they need to change the conference tournaments, I think, in baseball. And here's why, in my opinion. Because if you're a team that's already in a good spot, you could rest your pitchers. You don't see people doing that in conference tournaments in basketball because you don't want to be on a slow momentum going into the tournament. It's different from baseball. You can just rest your starters, your best 2 pitchers, and say, we want them strong for the region.
So there's no momentum in baseball?
There is, Hunter, but I'm just saying it's so pitcher driven. You know it is too.
Well, yeah, but to flat out say oh yeah, we're just gonna not try. We're gonna.
I'm not saying
go
not
out here
try.
and lose.
I'm not saying
Get
not
a
try.
tougher opponent.
There are teams that may rest them, though.
I'm not saying not try, Hunter. That's not what I said.
I'm tired. It's aggravating that a 19-win team is going to make the.
I agree, Hunter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, though. OU has not.
OU choked it. That's what killed it.
They
What's
choked.
aggravating is Skip Johnson's decisions a lot of times.
And yes, that was bad. That Douthit was a head scratcher at first, a risky move, and it worked out in the 8th inning. And then in the 9th, you got to, at the bare minimum, have a mound visit there.
I agree.
They strung out 4 hits in a row off of them. Douthit's,
where was Skip? How is no one going to the mound there?
That's what I'm saying. Skip
but
he makes some very questionable decisions.
And a lot of it is I think he's still, granted, it's not necessarily correct, but he's he was used to last year. He had 3 future MLB starters in that rotation.
Totally different team last year. I agree.
And yes, and now you look at the pitching staff this year, there's only one guy I can see getting drafted, and he might not even get drafted, and that's Braden Carmichael.
Well, you can't
Everyone else
say
cannot see them getting drafted after this year.
Well, and you can't say the bats haven't been good down the stretch. They've kind of caught fire a little bit, and they heated up. But when you can't close out a game up 9, whatever it was against Texas Tech, the errors had a lot to do.
It was
with
up 5, but
I hope they can get in, but we know that next year and the year after, or 2 years, probably they're going to be a lot better moving forward because they got some core. They got a good core of players, but I'd like to see them, get in there and try to upset someone at least with Carmichael one game.
2024, I would expect them to improve, but 2025 they're going to the SEC.
Yeah, the SEC, the one positive in there is I don't know how many SEC teams are going to make it. I can look, but I think it's like 11. There's 8 out of 16 hosts are SEC teams this year. So that there is an SEC bias, but it's because they're the best conference in baseball. They're
Is Skip the guy? Is Skip the guy
yeah,
to get it
absolutely.
from the SEC?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
he
that's still
is.
up in the air.
He is.
He took them to the national championship last year. He's shown it time and time again. He can do it. It's just a matter of this team was cupboard was bare. Like you lose 11 guys, you lose your entire weekend rotation. Like unless you're the Tennessees, the LSU, the Floridas of the world, you cannot have a 1-year turnaround after that. You
Hey,
can't.
Hunter.
It's impossible.
Hunter, give me the three to four teams that are vying for the last 2 spots, in your opinion.
See, the problem with it now is 2 of the spots are now gone. So
Okay, so but give me 3 teams.
Who's it between then for the
okay,
last spot?
so for the Big 12, for the last spot in the Big 12 is OU and Kansas State.
OU should go ahead of Kansas State.
I think they should, but and I like this so far from what we see from what's been released as of tonight, Sunday night. They released the 16 host sites. 15 out of the 16 were in the top 16 in RPI. So it shows that they care about RPI. And if that's the case, OU has the advantage there. Kansas State's RPI is awful, and I don't.
Is there no other team besides OU and K-State?
K-State swept them.
For Big 12. I'm saying the last spot in the Big 12.
That is true.
OU and K-State are both on that bubble right
They
there.
did sweep OU.
K-State swept OU, and didn't they have a better conference record?
Yes, they did, but that was Dakota Harris was out. I guess you can take that sweep like with a lot, but non-conference matters, and when your RPI's in the 90s in non-conference, maybe you should just schedule better opponents and not blame regional where you are located as a reasoning behind that. Because
my hope
still scheduled Dallas Baptist twice. That's a top 25 team in the country. They have been most of the year. They scheduled the series with Stanford, scheduled Gonzaga. Like they attempted to have a really good non-conference schedule, and they actually did. They had ORU. They swept ORU. ORU is going to be the 4 seed in Stillwater most likely, which I think that's Oklahoma State's on upset alert in my opinion.
ORU is a really good team,
and ORU has swept Oklahoma State this year 2 games.
Hey, Hunter, this would be my question. If they were to get into the NCAA tournament, what would the realistic expectations be for them in the tournament?
It depends on how far starting pitching can go. Like with Carmichael, if he can go 7 innings, there's a very good chance they're going to win. If he goes 9, they're going to win. He's 7-0 on the year. So that's the biggest thing is once your starter's pulled, what are you going to get from the bullpen? Because some nights it's great. We've seen Will Karsten strike out Texas over and over again in that 3-game sweep. We've seen Carter Campbell win pitcher of the week in the Big 12. And then we've also seen them come in and they get lit up. They just can't find the zone. They can't get outs. They can't get a put away pitch. And it's just so that.
What time is the show tomorrow?
11 a.m. 11 a.m. on ESPN2. The bracket will be revealed. I'm sure the committee's still going at it right now because it is a lot more interesting than it was going to be with now these 2 auto bids that were teams that were not going to get in.
For everyone watching,
that's what I was going.
At this moment, what would the percentage chance that they get in be? You think?
Are you asking Hunter or all of us?
I would say less than 5. I'm not feeling confident at all.
Less than 5. I'm going to say 25% they're in.
I say 50-50. Right?
Really? Yeah, I'm with Jay. I'll go like 50.
It's just those 2 auto bids hurt. If those 2 games would have went our way, I would be a lot more confident that the only way we don't get in is because they choose K-State over.
Yeah, but Hunter, you know what I think will go into consideration? I know people say it doesn't because it was the year before, but the run they had last year is, I think, can pay a little bit of a familiar team that just made a run. I think it could matter a little bit.
If the committee is thinking about that, that's just pathetic.
I'm not saying that's not.
Here's what I would have to ask about the committee. I don't know much about the baseball committee. You asked me about March Madness committee. I know all the nuances. I know everything they do in that committee. This one is not nearly as publicized. And what Brody brought up earlier about the sweep by K-State, I would hope that the committee does take into consideration that Dakota Harris was not there. If they do that, I think the odds are much better for OU. If they don't do that, then in my opinion, the committee's not doing their job. So I don't know how detailed this committee is. That's my question.
I think the number is, I think we've lost like 12 or 13 games without Dakota Harris, or with Dakota Harris in the lineup. Without him, we lost like 9, something like that.
I hope they take that into consideration.
And that included a sweep. That included the Baylor series loss. It was just a rough time without Dakota Harris, because that was just that kind of one of the best.
So let me ask this. If OU does not get in, you're saying K-State is the one that K-State's automatically in if OU isn't?
I would think so. I could be wrong on that. They could just say we're only going to take 5 Big 12 teams. That's definitely a possibility. I think they're going to take 6. I can't see them taking 7.
Okay. Any other baseball thing, guys?
Well, Oklahoma State, I don't understand how. I'm surprised they weren't knocked out of a hosting spot, because they got killed tonight in the championship.
Yeah, they did.
12-5.
TCU's red hot.
Oh, I'm so happy they won.
They are red hot.
There's only one other team outside of OU that I wanted to win the Big 12 tournament, and that would have been Kansas. Just can't stand Oklahoma State. Absolutely cannot stand Texas Tech. Their fans are some of the worst out there on Twitter.
They're also, the fans are the worst in person too. I can.
Yeah. And then Kansas State, that team's awful. No respect for them.
Oklahoma's baseball fans didn't really show out this past weekend.
It never happened. I don't know why you guys are shocked over it.
Yeah,
that's what fan base they have.
The point I'm trying to make is I don't get why they're playing it in Dallas.
Yeah.
What? They're all at the softball game.
Yeah,
I know what Brody's doing here. Yeah, and it should be back in Oklahoma City.
That's what I'm saying. I don't get why you're playing it in Dallas and like even the stadium and all that. Like,
yeah,
I feel like they have a better turnout.
Wait, why can you not?
There's more Texas schools than there are Oklahoma schools.
It used to be in Oklahoma City, and they moved it.
Yeah, but you're playing at a major league ballpark there.
Why do you need to play in a major league ballpark? You can't get the fans to fill up a major league ballpark. Why would you play in it?
You're playing in a 40,000
AAA stadium.
I'd rather have a smaller ballpark that's more filled up in a better environment than a huge ballpark that has 10%.
I agree.
I agree, but you don't have to have it in Oklahoma City every year. The fact that it was in Dallas means they could do it in Frisco, where Frisco plays. Yeah. I mean, there's more Texas schools in the conference than Oklahoma schools.
Okay, but there is one commonality: is when it was in Oklahoma City, it was sellout crowds every single game.
It would have sold out in Frisco.
I don't know if it would have.
Oh, I promise you.
I'm telling you, I could be wrong, because the camera doesn't really show you behind the plate and the bleachers, but I think there were some games that there might not have even been 1,000 fans there.
I think
very small.
If you put it in Oklahoma City, it's closer for every Oklahoma fan, Oklahoma State fan, Kansas State fan, and at the same time, it's not far away from your TCU.
I agree, Brody. I agree. I think they just need to move it around year after year, kind of switch it up.
I think
and not play in the big ballparks. That's
okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
All right.
If there was no roof, we might be having a very different.
We're not going to go down that road. Hey, so let's move on. What are we going to move on to recruiting, guys?
Yeah, let's hit some recruiting. I know there's some big news this last week with the whole Zadavian Sim thing.
Hunter's favorite player. Hunter,
yeah.
Get us started on your thoughts about that.
I want to start off by thanking Phil Knight for signing the check. I really, personally, I think OU dodged a bullet there, especially in the fallout of everything following the situation, all the drama associated with it. But really just going off of watching him play, I don't think he's a top recruit in the country. There's no way.
of
He,
the
he
stuff
should be killing 5A competition in Oklahoma, and he's not, unless it's a Tulsa school in the fourth quarter. But
Yeah,
And the
it's
way
the
he
stuff
handled
that
stuff
happened.
was just very poor.
Yeah.
Very poor.
Yeah, and the stuff we heard was that he basically was committed to OU until what, like Saturday night, Saturday morning.
No,
No.
not that anywhere near that. He had been
Oh no,
committed to-
no! I'm saying he was telling OU that he was locked in.
No, he was committed to Oregon, and he was telling OU that, Oklahoma still has a good chance here. You guys are still in a great spot. You guys are still in a great
Yeah,
spot.
that's what I was saying.
All while he's committed to Oregon.
Yeah, he was just two-faced.
And the stuff with Todd Bates, like the way that was handled was just very poor on Zadavian Sims and C4 on their part as well. Just the way all that was handled. So, yeah, but Zadavian Sims, I mean, he is an in-state kid, so you got to take like that. But I don't
Is
know.
it over?
And also, the thing that drove me the most crazy, Brody and Hunter, I don't know if you can speak on this, but we heard people saying that OU wasn't going to recruit C4 anymore, which I do not believe that is true. I don't know if you guys have heard anything on that.
If you were OU, knowing the stuff that happened, would you recruit C4?
Well, there's been some good come out of C4 too.
Yeah, it's
one of
kind
those-
of hard to say because I think things will finally just settle down.
yeah,
That
time
definitely
will tell on that situation. Just as of right now, emotions are still very, very high. over
Rightfully
everything
so.
right now. Yeah, you can't blame
Hey.
anyone for being upset.
Hey, real quick, on the Zadavian Sims thing, with the way he's handled it, with him being just like all the other recruits, 18-year-old kids, what makes you think this recruitment's even over? You think he's
It's
really
over for OU because
I
they've
think
burned
it's
the
over.
I'm not
bridge.
talking about for
Hey.
OU. I'm saying, is he really going to go to Oregon?
Yes.
I don't care where he goes. He's not going to OU, so it doesn't matter.
Your whole thing with committed doesn't mean anything is just the most BS I've ever seen.
Brody,
Like, you
come
you
on.
I
all the
agree
time
with
you're like,
Jay.
he's
I
committed.
agree with
Like,
Brody,
he's
fair.
committed. That's
Jay
ridiculous.
does have kind of a point to this because we heard all along that the mom wanted him at OU until he said he was going to Oregon. Now, I don't know anything about Zadavian Sims. I don't know his personal life. I don't have contact with his family. All I can say is stuff that I've heard. And in the end, I think the kid is going to have some second thoughts, but I don't know if OU is going to want to take him.
Oh no, he's burned the bridge.
There's certain stuff that Oregon can offer that will diminish second thoughts. And that there's also certain stuff that will, I mean, if you're the parents, you could get a check that will change your life for your kid to go play at Oregon.
And also, didn't he only visit Oregon like 2 times? Is that right?
He visited them, I think, 2, but they were his most 2 recent visits or something like that.
Are you guys implying that? And I don't know. I know what Jay's question was, but Brody and Hunter, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm under the assumption that if he were to decommit from Oregon and come back to OU, that OU has washed their hands of him. Is that not right?
Right now, yeah.
Here's the thing.
As of right now, you're saying that it's still up in the air. They would maybe take him back.
I don't think so. And honestly, it might depend when. I think once you get past that Champion Barbecue, they might be in a situation where, okay, we feel better or really good with other guys that are better than Zadavian Sims. Which
and also I think a lot of
let's get to that then.
Sims is gonna lean on whether or not what happens with Nigel Smith and Joseph Jonier. Because if you land both of those guys, then I don't know how too worried you are about Lanny Sims. But let's say JJA decides to go to Georgia, and then you kind of almost want to push hard for Sims to take and also take Smith because you don't really know who your targets are after that. Because there's not a lot of interior defensive linemen on the level of Zadavian Sims. Whether or not you like it, it doesn't matter.
There's 2 that are significantly better than him.
Yes, no, that's why I'm saying there's not a lot.
There's a decent amount.
I mean, if you ask me, I'd say there's about 1,000, but that's just my opinion.
So talk about Champion Barbecue then. Let's transition to that.
Well, and it's not just the Champion Barbecue. At this point, you got June 9th, which is the weekend before that is setting up to be a very good weekend. And one thing you're talking about interior defensive lineman, David Stone is going to be in town June 9th and June 16th. That's back-to-back weekends, which I think that tells Oklahoma fans all they need to know about the David Stone situation. And once you have Williams,
What does that tell me?
Nwaneri will be in the 9th. OU's trying to get Stone there to help with Nwaneri. That should.
Well, Stone's back in Oklahoma for the summer from IMG, and you're in the heart of OV season, and you're going to be here back-to-back weekends. That's massive.
And I can say that I guarantee you Stone will be up at OU 4 or 5 times this summer, and sometimes we don't even know about, because I guarantee you he's been up to OU 10 plus times.
I mean, you can't guarantee anything on recruiting. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, I'm just saying that's what I believe.
So he's the guy you have to get. Stone's the guy you have to get. Period. End of story.
Yep.
You got to get Stone. You can't. And the thing about Sims that's frustrating is he's an Oklahoma guy.
No, he's not.
He plays football in Oklahoma, Hunter.
Where's he from?
He is in Oklahoma. He is an Oklahoma high school football player.
Hunter, he plays high school football in Oklahoma. He's an Oklahoma.
Agreed.
When did he move to Oklahoma?
I don't care when he moved to Oklahoma, Hunter.
Well,
he's an Oklahoma recruit.
Hunter, where does he play football?
Answer the question first, Jay.
Where does he play football, Hunter?
What year?
He moved across the border last year. So
okay, where did he play high school football?
Last year he played at Durant. Year before.
Okay, Durant. Let me get my map out. I'm not sure, but I believe that's in Oklahoma. Hang on.
Just barely across the border.
All right.
Another defensive lineman recruit from Oklahoma, Danny Okoye. That's one that still don't know too much about where it's at, but you do know that Oklahoma is back in the race. Good sign there. They have a lot of guys on their board who are just speaking on like Zadavian Sims. They have a lot of guys on their board who are just like a lot higher on the board than Zadavian Sims.
Yeah. And speaking of guys on the board, there was a guy that dropped his top 5 today in Wyatt Gilmore. Brody, obviously you can speak a lot more than I can, but from everything that I've read or heard on Wyatt Gilmore is that OU is in a solid spot for him. I'm not sure who's the leader there. I've heard maybe Minnesota, but could you speak on that?
You won't know. I don't think you'll know much about that until you hear about the other recruitments, because Oklahoma plans to take 6 defensive linemen in the class. If you're looking at it, 3 edge, 3 interior, you're going to take Will Nwaneri over Wyatt Gilmore. You're going to take Danny Okoye over Wyatt Gilmore. You're going to take Nigel Smith over Wyatt Gilmore. So Wyatt Gilmore, I think it's certainly a name to watch, but I don't know. It kind of just depends on how things play out on where that goes.
Hey, pardon me.
Jay, stop. Jay.
No, Jay. From now on.
Stop. No, stop for a second, because I've kind of been on your side with the whole recruiting thing, but really the more I last year we'd have our podcast and I would say things like, you just can't know until they commit. But here's what I've realized about this whole recruiting thing. Like what they said about Stone, the fact that he is coming during the kind of peak OV season and he's using more of his visits for OU. Instead of saying, and what you're wanting to hear, Jay, is that he's going to commit right now and it's 100%. No, it's never 100% until they sign. Everyone knows that. But when you say it's like a race and OU is in the lead and you start looking at it like that, I think that's a better way of trying to understand the whole thing. I know you're sitting there like, just like when
because I heard Jackson say it and I've heard other people say it and it bothers me. And I think what I'm going to do is when we talk about recruiting, I'm going to turn my camera off and I'm going to go get something to eat. And then I'll come back when recruiting's over, because I can be that guy on my lawn, the old guy on his lawn. Because when I hear stuff like, OU's in a solid spot, OU's a top brand powerhouse blue blood in college football. I would hope they're in a solid spot with most players. Am I right?
Jay.
Am I right?
Jay, no,
you are not right. You cannot use that debate, because a lot of kids don't want to come to Oklahoma, don't even have interest in OU. Like when you talk about,
it's not even that.
Top 5.
When people at Florida, they look at Alabama and Georgia and places like that.
Hey, Jackson, when these people drop their top 5, OU's in a lot of them.
Okay,
I
and
think,
Jay.
I
but
think
Jay-
you don't have a clear understanding of what the term "in the lead" means because
No, he doesn't. That's what I'm
No,
saying.
in the
or
league
when I
is
say
different.
OU's in a good
No
spot,
simple vocabulary, bro.
or
Jackson,
when I say
Jackson,
OU's in a
you
good
said-
spot, I don't think you know what that means. I actually do not like the term
Define
lead.
in a good spot, Brody. Define in a good spot.
In a good spot. That, and obviously in recruiting, things can change so easily, especially here in May when official visit season is coming up. When you use the term lead, okay, that can change in one day.
Oh, yeah.
In a good spot, the OU feels good about where they're at with the
but
dude.
they're in a good spot with everybody.
That is not true.
Jay,
Oh,
That is not true.
with most
Jay.
people.
Jay, look
You
at
know
JJA this past weekend. It goes from OU's the clear leader, and he goes on that OV to Georgia, and he's the near leader.
Exactly.
And I don't put much stock into that.
I don't either. I'm just
so,
saying.
Hunter,
when you're
on that-
definitely when you're
true.
playing with Georgia, things do change. I think
Hey,
one is not-
Hunter, real-
people being a quote unquote leader or competing for the top. We saw the same thing with Williams Nwaneri. What he said about Texas A&M. I don't believe that for a second.
Okay, Jackson.
No,
Jackson, listen.
Nwaneri and A&M is not going to be a thing because
Li-
the head coach at Lee Summit
Yes.
North, Isaiah it's Mosey, he
Jamar
actually played at OU, and he's been very firm in saying, he's pushing kids away from Texas A&M. He's been very big on that. So
Okay.
I wouldn't even put much into that. And like,
Go ahead and call me out. Jay. Go ahead.
anytime these national recruiting guys, anytime you talk to a recruit, you ask him about a school like Texas A&M with Nwaneri, he's not gonna say bad things about it. Like he's gonna say good things about
I
it.
know, but listen, what Hunter just said about the Georgia thing, what Jackson says, what everybody says, and this is my point, is y'all say, well, he went and visited Georgia, and now he feels like they're up. But if I were to ask you, is OU still in a good spot? You would say yes. Would you not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are they
I
in
don't
as
think
good of a good
anything
spot?
changed.
No, it doesn't matter.
Are
They're
they in
good
as
spot,
good
whether
a spot?
It doesn't matter.
Hey, all you have to hear is how kids talk about certain schools. That's all I'll say.
One thing I will say about one thing we can take to the bank is this. Brent Venables has shown that he would prefer them to commit early, and he's made no bones about it. So I think, with the guy who was the guy that went to a visit.
Lane Jenkins.
Lane Jenkins
Okay.
decided to mess around, and he found out
That's
it's that
not. And
Jenkins.
what I'm saying is what Venables is doing. I think I give kudos to him
Agree.
because he could change. He could change this in how guys maybe commit early and stick to their promises. He's
Yes.
a word guy. You say it, you do it.
Yes, and
And
who were
he-
the two commits last year to take visits elsewhere? They both ended up different places.
Kozar.
And
And so,
Kozar
and
and
so
who else?
when you bring up the point committing doesn't matter, I think you look at it
It
how
does
I
to
didn't
Venables.
look at it. It matters a lot. Now, for a school that may let people take OVs, it may not mean as much. But
And it may hurt Venables in the long run. It may
No.
hurt him, but he's not going to adjust his character and his beliefs and his culture for some prima donna or whatever. He's just not going to do it. And I think that's the guy you want at the helm in the long run.
well, and he had a quote the other day. He said, if a kid has a crazy recruitment, they'll also be crazy in the locker room or whatever. He said that. So
Hey,
Although I am glad Bowman. I am
and
glad
then
Bowman.
also,
I don't
think
think that one
Brent
was.
Venables has said for a long time is you recruit your problems. That's true. If you recruit a kid that's not good in the locker room, if he doesn't make good grades in school, what's he going to do at OU? And speaking of a kid that wasn't able to get to campus, and Keon Brown and Brody, I've heard that maybe OU could take a fourth wide receiver. I don't know how true that is. With them hosting Terry Bussey on an OV, they're recruiting him out wide receiver, but I don't really know where OU stands there.
Let's talk real quick about we were talking about text threads earlier, and we had one going last week or 2 weeks ago about Petway. And I know, Brody, you seem to think he's getting on the field this year. Like not just getting on the field, like maybe starting at some point. The wide receiver position, if we're going to just talk about one position tonight, let's just talk about the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Because to me, it is the most interesting, confusing. It's like a game of Clue who it's going to be as far as who's going to be out there, maybe the third or fourth spot. Because I see the locks as obviously Farouk and Stoops.
Everything else is up in there.
Everything else is up in the air. And the additions that they've gotten with Brennan Thompson, okay, he adds something that, like, I don't see Petway getting in over Thompson.
Well,
I see Thompson as maybe that guy.
And
They-
let
they
me
really-
talk about Petaway on how I felt about it. But then, like, you bring up the up in the air, like even a guy like Jaden Gibson, I wouldn't write him off as being a guy who could start. Yeah, he's been struggling to catch the ball, but maybe he catches 2 passes in that spring game, and we would all be on here talking way different about Jaden Gibson than we would have been before. And we would be like, oh, Jaden Gibson is going to be the guy at receiver. 2 passes that he dropped, if he would have caught those, it would have been a different narrative. So if he can fix that up, I think he'll be in there as well. There's just a lot of guys like Andrew Anthony, LV Bunkley Shelton, Gavin Freeman, Nick Anderson, JJ Hester.
There's so many.
There's so many. And the thing about Jaquez Petaway, I really think he's going to play a lot for this team. I think he'll be a top 6 receiver on this team, and I could see him starting. And you haven't heard any buzz about it because he's not on campus yet. And if there's any position where you can get on campus early and play early, I think it's receiver. He has the speed. He has the tools. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a big impact on this team. I really think he has the chance. Like, what separates him and anyone else in that room? There's nobody else in that room besides Jalil Farouk and Drake Stoops that's really proven themselves. So why can't
They haven't had a chance to, Brody.
But why can't Petaway come
Anthony
in?
did pretty good at Michigan, right? Anthony?
He didn't do much at
In
Michigan.
2021, he was pretty good.
Well,
I mean, he's
Jeremy.
played college ball before.
why can't Petaway come in and be a huge impact?
I'm not saying he can't. I just don't foresee it with the stable that's full that they have. And you mentioned the guy Gibson. There's one thing we know about Gibson. Dude can get open, which sometimes that's a problem at OU. They got guys who just weren't able to get open. We know he can get open. If he can catch the ball, he's a game changer.
And then you got Nick Anderson, who, if he can be
Physical.
healthy, that's another one. Jeremy calls him a Greek god. If he can get healthy, he'd be one. And they really
He's a
like what
CeeDee
they
Lamb
have.
type. Hey, you haven't even mentioned Graham, though. Graham's the kind of the wild card in my mind.
He is a wild card, and that one's interesting. He had a good spring game performance. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Like he mentioned it, he said if he can do a couple more things, he thinks he'll be able to start and run with the ones. But that'll be interesting. Then you look at like LV Bunkley Shelton. The staff really likes him a lot, so it's interesting what they do there. Gavin Freeman is someone who is like very reliable. You can tell because anytime the QBs in that spring game would get pressured, they're looking for Freeman. They're dumping it off to Freeman. But yeah, the receiver room, there is a lot of guys who can produce, but there's no one that has proven themselves enough for me to be like, well, that's a guy that Petaway can't beat out. That's a guy that Petaway is not going to come in and play over. There's no one in there like that except for Farouk and Stoops.
So, Brody, give me your way too early prediction. How many 1,000-yard receivers does OU have this year?
1.
Okay. I can agree with
Farouk.
Me, I'm gonna say 0. That's crazy.
I can believe that too.
I would really believe that too.
I believe that it's going to be more of a rotation this year, and they're going to spread the wealth. And I know OU's been more successful in the past whenever they've had this 1,000-yard receiver. But also, I think that on this year's team, maybe with other guys, maybe with they're not a clear wide receiver one. Obviously, Jalil Farouk has the ability to be a wide receiver one, but he hasn't shown us that he can be that yet.
Well, if OU's offense wants to reach their potential, Jalil Farouk is going to have to be the clear wide receiver one, your clear go-to guy. And I think everyone knows he can do that, especially after that Alamo Bowl a while ago. Everyone was kind of like, oh, Farouk, he's going to be a guy. Like, we all know he has the ability, and I certainly think he'll be able to do it.
Hey, who was it that said 0? Jackson?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, if OU does not have a 1,000-yard receiver, this team's going to have a couple of losses. I'll promise you that.
No, I actually take
They're not
no
gonna go undefeated anyway. I would bet that.
Can I finish?
Yeah,
Can I
finish
finish?
and then yeah.
My reasoning is with Dylan Gabriel as the quarterback, he goes to that first receiver very often. And if
Which
that
def-
first – what?
Well, even if Dylan Gabriel's the quarterback.
Did you
Yeah.
listen to what Jackson said? He said it would be because we're rotating people, which is a real possibility this year. There's
Well,
gonna
what
be a
I'm
lot of
saying is-
rotation from here.
What I'm saying,
I agree
Jay,
with that.
Jay, I agree. Gabriel goes to his first read a lot. But what I'm saying is, if he has progressed, which I hope he has because of the pressure put on by Arnold, or maybe Arnold's the guy midseason. I mean, you got Farouk, Stoops, and a guy that has not been mentioned in Austin Stogner, who's going to get a lot of throws.
Stogner, yes.
And I think Sawchuck will be a factor out of the backfield
and so I think there's going to be a lot of spreading the wealth. I just don't see a 1,000-yard receiver on this team.
Who led the team in receiving last year, and how many yards?
Mims.
How many yards?
Probably had
like 1,300 maybe.
Yeah, like 1,300.
Or no, I don't think was he a 1,000-yard receiver?
Yeah, I'm almost positive.
I'll pull it up.
I thought he was like 920, but
yeah,
I don't know.
1,083 last year.
So he barely got over it.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
and Mims could have easily had like 1,400. He just dropped some wide open balls a couple times,
and that contributed to a couple of losses last year too. And it's just like, I don't know if you guys listened to JD Piquel at all, but he had a great point and said that OU was 5 plays away from being 10-2 last year.
Yeah, and about 4 of those plays were on the quarterback.
And
Jeremy were on drop passes too.
Jeremy mentioned it earlier about
I'm
like
so
Arnold.
tired of this argument about Dylan Gabriel because
I'm not arguing. I'm stating facts about last year.
And if you want to state another fact, let's just go around here. And I'm just going to say this. If Jackson Arnold starts one game, who believes that he would not start the rest of the games? Does anyone believe that?
If he starts one, he's the guy.
That's what does anyone disagree with that statement?
No.
Okay, the next fact I'm going to present you with, and I definitely hope this is not the case. I hope that he can stay healthy. But when was the last time Dylan Gabriel
freshman year
every single game in a season?
I think it was his freshman year.
I don't even think he did it that year.
Oh.
He's never been fully healthy throughout a year, and I really hope he could stay healthy. But I think if he does go down, I don't see a world where Jackson Arnold is going to hand that spot back to him. I think he takes it and he runs with it.
And yeah, I agree. I think that if Jackson Arnold gets the spot, he's going to take it. It's going to be his job. But also, Jackson Arnold as a freshman will probably struggle mightily at points in certain stretches in games. We saw it with Caleb Williams, so don't give me that look, Hunter. And Caleb Williams is debatably the most talented quarterback of the 21st century.
Why do we have to compare Caleb Williams and Jackson Arnold all the time?
We're not. What do you mean? I've never
just compared them.
I don't compare them all the time, so I don't know.
I'm not saying you, but a lot of people do compare.
Yes, and it's also not fair to compare the Rattler and Williams situation to this one. That's not
no. But you can't say because Caleb Williams struggled, that means that Jackson Arnold's going to struggle a lot. I do think Arnold would struggle a lot if he started.
All freshmen struggle.
You can't compare Rattler and Caleb to this one. I'll tell you why. Rattler was a highly touted 5-star, but he's 4-star guy. He was way more talented than Dylan. It's actually way more likely that they're going to be booing Gabriel than it was that they booed Spencer Rattler, who was him coming into OU.
Spencer Rattler was getting booed when he didn't lose a single game at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
If Gabriel makes...
You were one of them booing, probably.
Hunter, no, I wasn't. Hey,
Hunter,
I wasn't.
I was a huge Rattler fan.
Same.
A huge Caleb fan.
I like him too.
But I did boo. I was in the We Want Caleb movement.
Well, I do think that Rattler is going to have an amazing year at South Carolina.
I do too.
Hey, as we transition, the Caleb kind of can transition into Jeremy. I know you wanted to do top 5, maybe your best Sooner Magic moment. I mean, the Caleb Williams Texas game could be up there.
That has to be up there.
Okay, so yeah,
and here
we got 6 of us on here. 6 of us on here, and I'll go ahead and start because I'm just going to start it. Okay, and I know a lot of people when they think of Sooner Magic, it strictly is correlated with Oklahoma football. But what happened yesterday? What happened yesterday was the perfect illustration of what Sooner Magic is. People that are not Sooner fans don't really understand that mysterious Sooner Magic. And what happened yesterday was exactly that. And, of course, it's talent. Of course, it's never stop believing. But we're going to call what happened yesterday Sooner Magic with one strike away on Patty Gasso's freaking birthday. Are you can't write a storybook.
And also the last home game at Marita Hines.
Marita Hines Field's closed.
And for the record,
there.
And for the record,
it's almost like and for the record, it's like it's NBA. People are gonna say it's rigged. You can't even make this stuff up. But that was Sooner Magic at its finest. I challenge any of you five to come up with one better. I know there's a lot of others, but let's hear them right now.
I'll go with one. OU Alabama Sugar Bowl. That was we had Paul Feinbaum on here earlier this year, and he was the one in the media driving the narrative that Alabama is going to win by so much. OU should probably just close down their program. Like it's just it's embarrassing for Oklahoma to be in this game. They have no chance. They're 14.5-point underdogs. And then Trevor Knight has the game of his life. And it was just a beat down. There's no other way to put it. It was an hour-long beat down. Eric Stryker, Jalen Saunders, that just entire team, Sterling Shepard, everyone from the front five to the secondary, Zach Sanchez with the pick.
Didn't Gino Grissom take a fumble all the way back?
Yeah, scored. Gino Grissom. Right. I remember that. And I mean, I'll go next. For me, this is so tough. But the first game I remember watching Sooner Magic was whenever OU came back versus Tennessee in Knoxville. I mean, that was a great game. We talk about a game where it was Sterling Shepard. He had to leap into the end zone in overtime. And that was really kind of whenever the world became familiar with Baker Mayfield. And then there's obviously another game where the nation became a lot more familiar with them. But that's just that's really the earliest memory I have of OU, so that's what I'll pick.
Hey, and then one, I got one that could be, but the Baylor Jalen Hurts comeback I'd consider that Sooner Magic.
Brody, that was the most fun we ever had during a game.
Yeah, but here's as far as not football, I would say this could have easily been Sooner Magic. Had it counted, was the Buddy Hield half-court buzzer beater against West Virginia in the 2016 Big 12 tournament, where he actually didn't score until like 8 minutes left in the second half. And then he almost went down there and won that game. But maybe the Texas one where Buddy Hield hits the buzzer beater to beat them, that was a great moment. I don't know if you consider that Sooner Magic, but it was huge. The LSU game where Isaiah Cousins hit the dagger in front of Ben Simmons' face, that was a great one too. But, yeah, as far as, Sooner Magic moments, the Tennessee game is one that really comes to mind, as well as the Baylor comeback. And then the OU Texas where Caleb Williams leads them back. I think that one.
There's
Traver, what about
Jay,
you?
Jay, we're a lot older, but we know a lot of older ones. But Jay, Brody mentioned basketball. Jay, remember the Ryan Humphrey?
Oh, the tip-in?
Ryan Humphrey tip-in against Arizona, won it 13 versus
4-13. And if you remember right, Kelvin Sampson hadn't won like an NCAA tournament game.
Oh, he lost to Manhattan. That was a huge one.
Ryan
Humphrey on OU staff right now. He's on OU staff right
now. He's one of the main recruiters on the staff.
Is. Shout out to Ryan Humphrey. Traves, you got one?
Yeah, I have one. So I agree with Brody. I'm on the Baylor one, but the real Sooner Magic in that game was Nick Benito. True freshman, redshirt freshman. I believe he was a redshirt. Yeah. And so he dropped the first pass that came out. Then he redeemed himself and got the game-sealing interception.
That was when Nick Benito was wearing number 35. He wasn't even wearing number 1.
That's so
weird. Jay, you have to go with your favorite player ever. I'll be disappointed if I don't hear your Sooner Magic one here. It's not what I think it is.
Hey, so I have a couple here, but here's the deal.
Did he just breathe?
We lost him.
Oh my!
Say Sooner Magic.
We lost you, bro.
First off, without their last national championship,
I'm
back. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, now we can. I can probably tell the moment you were going to say.
No, listen. Texas A&M on the road. Torrance Marshall with the interception. Guys, that game was a wild game. And if that doesn't happen, they probably don't win the national championship. Honestly, that was such a huge play. So I have to say that one because that was, I was at the prime of me watching OU football. But you cannot mention Sooner Magic. I cannot believe any of y'all I know y'all are younger, but come on. Sooner Magic was. Oh my! What, Jay? You have you? Oh my!
Hey, you might need to go upstairs.
1976.
Well,
my internet's struggling. Hey, I said
you were getting
listen,
ready to define what
you got to
Sooner Magic
was.
was.
Yeah, Sooner Magic was born against Nebraska. That's where the term was, I think, made up, was when they ran 2 trick plays, I think in 1976 on the last drive. Sooner Magic is not a game. Sooner Magic is a few plays of a game, guys, that make a huge difference. And you go back to 1976 and they ran 2 trick plays. You know, the Torrance Marshall interception. Those to me are just Sooner Magic plays. Kenzie Hansen home runs. That's Sooner Magic, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can do an impersonation of your soon.
Yeah.
And then you lag out like every single time you're going to go say something.
Speaking of Sooner Magic too, I mean,
Sorry.
I'm surprised no one said the game versus Ohio State on the road, where it seemed
There's
like
too many to count,
Because
Jackson.
it's
We can
not
go
a
all
game.
day.
Sooner
Yeah,
Magic is not a game.
You can go
It's a
Baylor
moment.
2015.
Sooner Magic isn't a
Like,
game. It's a
It's a
play.
moment.
It's a moment.
okay,
Jackson, what play from the Tennessee game was Sooner Magic?
probably the Sterling Shepard leap, as I said.
I agree. Tiptoeing? I agree.
Yeah,
That's what I'd say about that OU Texas basketball game in 2016 when Hield hits the dagger 3. That was
Yeah.
a Sooner Magic moment.
Yeah, agree.
But yeah, I think
it's fair to say we've seen it in the NFL too, from Kyler Murray on the Hail Murray. So it carries to NFL players too.
Yeah, I think that wraps it up for everything we have on this edition of the Sooner Surge podcast. If you haven't, go check out Surge Sports Network. Check out our Twitter, Instagram, all that. You can see here in the ticker below us. It has all the Twitter follows that you guys should go follow all those accounts.
Hey, Brody, real
quick.
quick. Anybody watching this, I want your comments below. Sooner Magic, the play that you define Sooner Magic with.
And if you are watching this and you haven't yet, make sure you go subscribe to our
Please.
channel and turn on the notifications. We're coming at you with different podcasts now with softball. The guys are having softball videos out like very quickly after the game, giving their thoughts on the game. So if you haven't, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notifications. That way you get notified anytime we have a new YouTube video or we have a new podcast. I think that wraps it up. Boomer.